Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. Last week I got the opportunity to interview David Kaye for the channel. We discussed a variety of topics, including the beginning of his career, a lot of projects he's worked on, including X-Men Evolution, Marvel's Eternals, Ratchet Clank, and more. It was really great chatting with him. I wish I could have talked with him longer, and I really hope I could talk with him again at some point. Enjoy the interview. Here we go. Thank you so much, David, for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it, sir. Before we get into anything, how are you doing today?
Let me check. Yeah, pretty good. You know?
Good.
Yeah,
All
considering. I just said I'm about 5.5, almost 6 weeks out of back surgery. So, not serious back surgery, but like, you know, it's a little scar like that.
Okay.
But it seems to have gone okay. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better for sure. I mean, that surgeries can be scary, so that's good that you're doing.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, and the scariest thing is going under the anesthetic. That's really that's the scariest part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I had my surgery, I freaked out because I just didn't know what to expect, because they really didn't explain to me.
The unknown.
Yeah, it really is the unknown.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't know what's going on. I want to start at the beginning in terms of what was your first kind of inspiration or moment that made you want to get into this business in terms of acting, and maybe voice acting specifically, but what was that first thing for you?
You know, well, there's sort of a few things, a culmination of stuff. But I mean, my initial want or love was radio. I wanted to be either on television or radio, and I loved radio. Even as a young kid, you know, I was fascinated by hearing voices on this little box, you know. That was the biggest thing. And I remember listening to these big voices, and I was just a kid, and we used to, when we emigrated, of course, to the U.S. and living in California for many years now. But when I was, a kid growing up in Canada, I used to listen to, or they called it skip, because at night, for whatever reason, their radio waves would travel further. So I was listening in my home, not too far out of Toronto, to stations out of Chicago, Buffalo, Boston. These are these big stations, these big voices, and I was just enthralled and enamored with them. And I always kind of thought that would be kind of cool to be one of those voices. It was mysterious to me. You know, like how do you do that? So that was the initial thing, and then the secondary one, which it was a weird one, but you know, come with me on this little journey. Is when you get a girlfriend, and you have a girlfriend, or you have in high school, and I remember I was young, but I remember she broke up with me, and we're in my car, in my busted station wagon, you know, at the time. We were only young, and she broke up with me, and I remember, you know, well, you know what? One day you're gonna know who I am. You're gonna know. And I think back to that moment. I go, what insanity was that, to say things like, because you're devastated and you think, well, I'm going to show you. And the only thing I could think of at the time was, well, I'll show you that you made a mistake, because, it was, and I kind of half wonder if that was maybe some of the incentive to try and do well in this business. But I always think about that moment, but I think mostly I can honestly say that I had always loved, hearing voices on the radio and in movie trailers when I was a kid, and go to movies and I'd hear this voice, and it was coming next summer, and I always were like, it was a mystery, and I wanted behind the curtain, and that's pretty much been the story of my life. I wanted behind the curtain. I wanted to, what's the mystery? How do I get behind the curtain? And that was it.
I mean, that's a great story.
It's a long answer,
but But that is your story. Like
It
if
is.
that breakup never happened, maybe
Maybe, yes.
you never know, right?
I'll show you. Oh boy.
Now, when you
Yeah.
were like thinking about getting this, did you actually go? I know there's classes and stuff you can do, or was it because sometimes people organically find they can do voices and able to kind of come up with characters. Like, what was your kind of process on that? Because you've done so much work in so many voices, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to a podcast or something I saw. It was Reese Witherspoon and so, and she never really had any formal training, and I kind of because I wasn't one of the ones that went to ROD and the Royal Academy and studied Shakespeare, and so it was more, I would say, as you said, an organic type of a thing. I had a sense of this, and I knew that I wanted to get good at it. And I was, I still, like all of us, I'm still that kid, that 17-year-old kid who is looking for, praise, is looking for, because I was horrible, but somebody gave me a shot. Somebody said yes, and that really is. It's been a series of many, many no's, but once in a while yeses, and that's been the thing throughout my entire career. And there became more yeses as time went on. I just kind of got better at it, I guess. And I know what I'm doing. I know I can hear when I'm not there, and I'm able to adjust. And it just comes with experience. And it wasn't until later on that I learned from my friends who had been to RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London, and studied under, people like Uncle Don, or they went to, the Meisner thing, and they went to, and had all these wonderful teachers and experiences. So I did theater in order to learn from them. I thought it was necessary as much as it scared me to do theater, because I knew there were certain things that I was lacking, and at least I had to get up on the boards and try, and and for fast forward, on camera screen acting came in, and I hated everything I was in and didn't like looking at myself, but I learned a lot, and I think it really helps. It's sort of on the job training. I never went the other route, as my friends did. They theater, and they studied, and this and that, and I had to come at it a different way. I had to unlearn a bunch of stuff that I learned on the radio, and it's animation and acting in front of this thing here is it's a little different. It's very focused in here. So everything. Everything was a learning experience. Everything was a. I always tell people that want to get into the business that, the best thing you can do is read a lot, travel, expose yourself to different ideas, especially travel, because it just gives you a sense. It gives you another perspective instead of your own little world, and that when you're drawing on characters, that comes into play, that all that nuance, all that stuff comes into creating and thinking about a character from all your other experiences outside in the world, that they dictate what that character, so
because I think you have that's a nice way to look at it, because with those experiences, that helps you when you're going to audition and try out for voices, that you can come up with maybe ideas or choices that maybe you wouldn't have done previously if you didn't have those other experiences, and maybe that helped you, right?
And then it became about telling the truth. There was many years go by, and you just kind of do a voice, and you kind of fly by the seat of your pants, and with a certain amount of natural ability. I'm not talking about me. I've been a lot of people, over the years, but ultimately, and that's where a trained actor comes, that's where those skills come in. You have to tell the truth, and people can tell when you're just doing a voice or not. It needs to be truthful, whether it's cartoony or real or not cartoony, a character. It's got to really come from the heart, right? It's got to be an actual being, or a living, breathing, walking, talking being that has feelings. So but those are all things that help you get there. And I have to tell you that when an audition comes through and they give you the breakdown, who this character, 50 to 60 years old, or, he's an older, he's this and that. And all you basically start doing is reading the directions that he's older or he's 70. So maybe he's in here, he's an English accent, and maybe he's very frail, and maybe he's going to pass away soon, or he's full of, or he's kingly. And you read that direction, and you kind of, it's like it's clay. You kind of sculpt this, and then when you sort of find a voice print, and then you kind of go in for, okay, how do we make this, like, how do we make it live, and how do we make it truthful?
Exactly.
And that's sort of my process,
Yeah, because I've spoken with a couple other people who've been in the voice industry, like Rob Paulson and others, and
he's brilliant. Gosh.
Yeah, and they've all kind of explained, and I think it makes sense. Like, yes, the artists who are creating the characters and creating the animation and whatever you're working on, like that, they're one part of creating that character and making it real. But your voice brings it to life, and if, like you said, you were being authentic, telling the truth. Like, if you're doing too much, it's gonna feel inauthentic. It's gonna feel like, oh, you're pushing too far, even if it's a crazy character or a, like I said, cartoony, like over the top. If you're too over the top, then people might not connect with it because it feels like you're forcing something or making it feel like, oh, this character doesn't exist. Like, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I mean, and it comes with experience. But there's, I worked with a guy. I call him the Kid, Anthony Del Rio on this show. Oh my God, I missed the whole cast. He-Man, Master of the Universe. We did our version, not the Kevin Smith one, but the other Mattel one, and I played Battle Cat. And I remember the first day of recording, and Anthony, I knew, he was an I think he was a Disney kid or something. He was a Nick kid, or he was on one of the shows. And I knew of him, and I didn't know Anthony, and we were all going around the room doing our warm-ups, and he just starts talking, and I'm like, oh my, he's so good. Like, it's just, he's not even, it's like turning on a tap, and it doesn't sound like he's not acting at all. He's just being. And I just, man, he's brilliant, and I hope he realizes that, because I still struggle, is it, and sometimes the part is written and the writing is so good, it just flows, and it just, you become the part, and you're a human, or you're whatever, you're a being, right? Anthony just turned the tap on, and it's him. Right. And that's what I tell people, they come up with voices as well. Get comfortable with your own voice first, and because that's what's going to get you the job. And you have to be real. It's Optimus Prime, Transform and Roll Out from TF Animated. I was so uncomfortable for the first few episodes that I was sort of like, it's like as if I was watching myself perform, and I finally dropped into the character and went, oh, this is, what? You know why I'm so afraid of this? Because it's me. Because we all put masks on every day, and we create characters, and we're other people, and it's like, that's what's comfortable, because we're behind the blanket, we're behind the mask. But to be who we are, that's really uncomfortable for some people, including me. So it took a while just because, Optimus, well, that's kind of who I am. Wow. Yeah. And so I just went, well, that was way more difficult than it should have been, but it took years to get to that point, Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's all about the experience, and it's all about just getting comfortable, because with so many projects you've done, I mean, it can take time, and it might feel overwhelming, but it's just all about just finding your rhythm and what works best for you, because everyone works differently in terms of how they get into their character. Yeah. So I feel like it's perfectly fine to feel, I mean, when I started my new job where I'm at now, I felt so out of place for a while, and I still kind of do. Like, it's something I think everyone experiences in their own unique way.
Yes, that's true.
Situation.
Yes.
Yeah. I watched a show recently, and you were a lead on that show, and I loved your interpretation of Professor X from X-Men Evolution. I was one of those kids that grew up on the 90s X-Men, so when that show first came around, I was like, not my X-Men.
Yeah, I know. It was, let's close the studio door. I remember that was when I was still living in Canada, still living in Vancouver, and they were doing it up there, and it was, oh yeah, that was so much fun, man. I had gotten. That's the first time I think I met Matt Youngberg, or Matt Youngberg was on a project that I had worked on way before we worked on TF Animated and DuckTales and stuff. And I remember somebody telling me, I don't know, giving me, hey, they really like, they're big fans of Patrick Stewart. I went, oh, so am I. So I just did my, Patrick Stewart. I just did sort of this thing, and Kitty, where is Storm? And I just sort of brought that to it, and that was all it needed. Like, oh my God, Patrick. I just did my version of a Patrick Stewart thing. Yeah. So yeah, that was fun.
And it worked. And I also noticed over time that the voice, like I've noticed a lot of times voices kind of shift over time as you keep doing it. And I noticed that it did shift a little bit, but I think that's because you just did the voice so much that eventually it found its actual spot. Like it started off one way. Yeah. Yeah. And I really love the performance.
That's why Homer Simpson kind of sounded like that, but
yeah. And then now
he became dead. Yeah, I know.
That's good.
Bulbs. Yeah. Marge. Who's that? Well, that's Homer. It's Barney Rubble. For those of us that go back.
Yeah, exactly. And you're also Apocalypse in that series too. Towards
I forgot about that. I remember that exhausting day that I had to talk to myself for for a few different takes. I'd forgotten about that. I think they must have lowered the pitch or something. I can't remember what happened.
Oh, gotcha.
Apocalypse. I just did something like that, and I just Yeah. That was so much fun, man. We had I wish we had the outtakes. From that show. Oh my God. Actually, maybe I don't. No, that was good.
You never know, but I would love to see that, or at least, I wish the show would have continued, but that's just me. I really just loved what they did with it because it was
it was fun.
It was different for sure.
Yep.
Now I'm not caught up to the reboot, but you've ended up voicing Grandpa Max in a lot of Ben 10.
Oh yeah. That's right, because I was in Omniverse and played a bunch of aliens and Kyber the Huntsman and go to chest to bring my South African accent out, Ben Tennyson. That was kind of fun. But Grandpa Max was, I remember going in for it, and it just happened. One of those ones where I always think, well, they're not going to hire me. But this one was one of those ones you go, and I got a shot at this because it just felt, well, it's just me, but I'm just an older, crankier me. I'm Grandpa Max, man. What the Sam Hill, Ben? And it was just all I had to do was that. And I go, oh. So it was, sometimes things are just right there, and you don't have to do too much. But I also had a familiarity with the people, Man of Action and Steve and those people behind the scenes who wrote the show or created the show. And there was a familiarity. So it was quite comfortable going in and reading for them, and I was like, hey, we're goofing around, and it was very loose. I used to get, and I think I probably sunk myself, but I remember used to having to go into Disney and read, and you get on the lot, you go, okay, I got this, it's a callback, and you get to go on the lot, and then in Burbank, and then you look up and there's the big dwarves are up on the, as you're walking in, they're all looking at you and don't screw it up, and I would always get freaked out and tight, and I hate it because I knew I could, pull off the role, but I just wasn't loose enough, and I think, there's a director I read for a couple of times. I don't think he'll ever hire me because I think he, saw me at my, I just, I don't know what it was. I would sort of freeze up. So there's, I'm same thing with Nickelodeon, after so many losses, you kind of like throw in the towel. Like, well, I guess that's not ever going to happen. Not a good attitude. And I got to tell you, I'm the first one to say, but it's sort of like, as an actor, you feel, well, I guess that's not in the car. It's just not, it doesn't, one of those things. And it's a life of the ups and downs of the business. And I always, I'm grateful and thankful that somebody said yes. So yeah.
Yeah, and just said, let's see what you can do about it. And you're still getting nervous, or maybe you.
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah.
I had a session the other day well, I can say I had a session. That's all I can say.
Those NDAs.
There was, I've been a fan of you for a long time. And I go, of is there somebody else in this room? Of me? You really?
Mm-hmm.
And these are people I look up to, and people that create things and so I always get taken aback by that. But yeah, I don't really take a look at my IMDb page because it kind of freaks me out because I puts a lot of pressure on me, and I just want to, people say, "Oh, I saw in your IMDb." I said, I have no idea what's on there. I think my publicist keeps sort of track of things. At least I hope she does. I'm
Hopefully.
sure she does. But because I don't, that's I'm not very good at that. I just like to do the work, and then okay, what's next? I enjoy it, and then I want to enjoy something else now. That's how I am.
You want to find what's next, like what's the next thing,
which is not. Look, it's not great advice, but I just kind of like, okay, done, moving on. What do we got? What else is coming up? And to the point is where something will preview on some network or movie will happen. I go, oh my God, that's on. I didn't even, nobody told me, yeah, that happens, a lot with me. I'm an odd one that way, I guess.
I wouldn't say it's bad advice. I think your whole thing is like, well, like I did it, and I accomplished my work, and hopefully you feel great about it. And you're like, okay, so what's the next thing? Like, what's the next story? What's the next character?
Yeah.
Like, because you want to keep finding new things. Like, you don't want to be
always,
because you don't want to sit around going, okay, I'm just going to wait for this to come out. Like, what's the next thing for you?
Yeah. And the trick to that too is, I have an amazing team of people. I'm so grateful and fortunate with the folks in LA and New York and the team of people that I have. I did a holiday dinner, Christmas dinner thing for everybody. Well, actually, it was a New Year dinner by the time we did it. Mm-hmm. And I had my team. Not all they were there, but the main people in my team were there. And I looked around the room and wow. Number one, how did I get people? I have people. Holy smokes! Mm-hmm. But they're all as much a part of the success as I am. They all have so much to do with this. It's I'm just grateful for all of them because they've you get the opportunity with a team like that. My animation team couldn't make the dinner, and I was honestly a little bit kind of bummed out because they're such a big part of that too, a major part. And I do a lot of different things, as you know, from network to trailer to promo to narrative, and animation is my, I have a very deep love for animation and the people involved. I still to this day wonder how the hell I got on the inside, and even, people, but again, some people allowed me into play and some things I wish I could do again and do better, but there's certain moments where, all right, I just love it, creating characters and going to conventions and seeing people that you've affected. That's pretty deep,
Yeah, I was going to actually ask about that because I think like fan events like that, it's really like a place for you to interact with the people that are really attached to you and really like love what
because
you've done.
Because without them there's nothing.
Exactly.
There's no Clank. There's no Clank with no arms. His arms are gone. I played with him so much. There's no this guy. There's no Megatron. There's nothing. He and still this freaks me out because how many years has this been? 1994. And I was at a couple of fan expos. I was fortunate enough to get to go last year, and I remember I was in Boston, and there's a little kid comes up, and then the dad. I said, so, and I thought that was the dad I was doing. He said, no, that's for my son. I go, did your son watch these? Oh yeah, he's watched all of them. He loves it. Do your yes for him. I go, the kid was like, was like 6.
Yeah.
And yes, and the kid was all, and so it's because things are streaming now, and you can watch things that, and they still get a kick out of it, which has a lot to do with the people who created it and the people who built the world and mainframe and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of credit goes to them, but it blows me away that there's now there's like it's been 3 generations sometimes now that is happening that they're exposed to that Transformers series, the Beast Wars ones, and they're very well aware of it. And it's like, wow. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Do you think streaming has like changed like people's approach to like coming to you for projects? Because I feel like it really has. Because now, before it was harder to get a hold of some older content. Now it's easier.
It's true. So. I mean, and again, here's another example of streaming and stuff. The only way you could ever watch Yasha and Sesshomaru, there's the pop. Would be to stay up late after your bedtime and watch it on like things like Adult Swim or whatever it was called, Toonami, right?
Toonami.
And now because of the exposure, there's more people than ever, that are become fans of this stuff. And this character, we did this when it was like 20 some odd years ago, and I mean, I'm so fortunate enough to fly me over to TF Nation in Birmingham.
Nice.
The second weekend of August there, and over to Sweden for, oh my God, I can't remember the name. Oh boy, they're going to hate me, but I'm going to Lund, Sweden for the big Transformers convention.
Nice.
In late September. It's just Memphis Comic-Con coming up in October. They were doing a signing for San Antonio this year in September, I think, with James Arnold Taylor and myself. So I'm still getting asked to go places.
They still want to see you.
They still do want to. They still want to see me. It's great, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's so awesome.
And you brought up, I have a friend of mine who was really excited when I told him I was speaking with you. He loves Ratchet and Clank. And I wanted to ask specifically, did you expect to play this character for this long? Because, I mean, that franchise started back in the early 2000s. I mean. No, not at all. I mean, that's one of those things. There's certain shows that come up and go, oh, my, this is going to go forever. This is, oh my, how iconic. And then it gets canceled after one season. And then you do things like, I remember the little paragraph came in from Ratchet and Clank, and I was still living in Canada, I think at Vancouver at the time. I was commuting back and forth and a paragraph came in, and I went, I don't know. And it just basically said, he's a robot. Well, we don't want him to sound like a robot. He's more of so I just started talking like this. And instead of saying can't, I would say, I cannot, Ratchet. It's not possible, Ratchet. We must find Captain Quark. And I just came up with this character. My head would go and my neck would get sore. And next thing you know, here we are. And what are we, 25? I don't know, 25 years later this year? 23, I think.
23, whatever. It's like, it's crazy.
Well, 22, 23, yeah.
I mean, Ted, the Insomniac Ted there, when they were all children, I met them when they were all very, very young. And gosh, man, yeah, good memories, but you just never know. Yeah,
you like I said, you see one thing, and this is going to go on forever, and then, or like, oh, this won't last long, and it keeps going.
Yeah, well, we're lucky if we get like another season out of it, and it just keeps going. Or again, in video games, how many games now? So Rift in Time is so freaking cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Last thing I wanted to ask you before I wrap this up for you, so I don't want to keep you forever.
No worries.
You joined the MCU in Eternals. I think that's pretty cool. Like, when I spoke with Rick Wasserman, he was the narrator for Werewolf by Night for Disney Plus. Yes. Oh, I love
there it
that.
is. Our return for judgment. Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, Rick Wasserman, let me say, Rick, he is an amazing human being. He's just such a nice guy, and I've always been a big fan of Rick and his voice. And tonight on AMC, and he builds and invented a thing with my engineer George Whitman. Whittam. Sorry, George. I've known you forever, but I just pronounced your name wrong. George Whitman. That's right. That's who it is. No, and they build a try booth, which is a sort of a booth I pack away, and you can build in your hotel room or wherever you go. And Rick was one of the inventors of that, and that's saved my professional life on many occasions. So I want to thank Rick for that. But yeah, it's wild because you don't know what you're auditioning for. I thought it was for, is this like a Transformers thing you're doing? I don't know why they asking for me. You know what I mean? When I was reading for it, it was again 3 sort of paragraphs, and gosh, I don't know. So I kind of did like an Optimus, like my version of an Optimus, whatever that is. And I read and I forgot about it. And I only saw a very, very small group of people for that. Having a great agency is it's great because sometimes they're very selective who they send in. Yeah. The next thing you know, I get a call and it said, "Hey, DK, I got good news." That's my agent voice.
Yeah. Okay.
So, hey, so they want to, and at the time, we weren't even sure I was even going to go to finish or end up in the movie. It was sort of like because they just don't want to pay you that much. So they kind of, they lowball, he might not even make it. So, and next thing you know, I'm on a Zoom call with Chloe Zhao and the team from Eternals, and pretty much everything was done, and my job was to come in and give that character a voice. We had numerous sessions, very cloak and dagger, talking about NDA. Poof. They would bring you things and they would wait on you. They would make sure. So it's very, very. Again, for me, it's kind of easy now to not say anything because I forget about what I've done. I just kind of move on. But I remember going to the movie theater. We live out here in Ventura County, and it was nobody around. It was a Wednesday. It was sort of early out of COVID, and we went down. Oh my God, the smell of popcorn!
Exactly.
It was like the first smell of popcorn in the movie theater after being out of it for a few years. It was the best thing in the world. So we sat way up high, just a few people in the theater because it was a Wednesday matinee. Who's there? And the character comes in. I'm waiting for like a Michael Fassbender, and I heard the voice when they kept me in. Oh my God, they kept me. So I was quite thrilled. And hopefully one day I'll return for Judgment. Who knows? It wasn't one of the most successful Marvel ones, but I liked it a lot. And Chloe has a way of directing that I love. But it was that character was special because my late friend David Hayes, who I think he's been gone now for 3 or 4 years. He unexpectedly passed away of a heart attack back in Canada, and we were children. He had a cool job at 14 in Sandy's bookstore in my hometown, and it was down the basement, old wooden crickety stairs, and the basement was packed full. Oh my God! If they were still there, and what that would be worth today, I don't know. Of like Marvel and DC and all these other comics, and we'd sit there, and on Saturdays, and he had a part-time job of going through them and selling them. Sandy gave him a part-time job, and I would go down and hang out with him. And I remember distinctly because I knew very well about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, And I remember he saw this. I remember it's the Eternals. It was a small series, and I was going through, and I remember Jack Kirby. I remember the Eternals. I remember the books, and the thing that Dave exposed me to these characters in this story. And here, many years later, I'm at a theater in Ventura County, watching this movie unfold, and there's listening to my voice as this character Arishem. It was like. What? That was surreal. Yeah, man.
It's really nice you have that connection and that like how much it means to you, and I really feel you will come back because I feel like you can't.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope so. He's because he has to come back for Judgment. I will return for Judgment. That's the words.
That's what he said, and the fact that he's hovering over the entire Earth.
Yeah.
I mean.
I loved it because, spoiler alert. I mean, gods make mistakes too.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I'm just going to throw that. So I loved the whole, like, wait a second, he's the all power. He can still, wow. The Arishem, yeah. So I dug it. I hope he does, like you said.
I feel like with the next 2 Avengers movies coming up, you're gonna pop up at some point. I think you'll have to come back to do something.
I hope so. If they don't, hire Michael Fassbender again
Who's David Kaye? What? Who?
Yeah. So we'll cross our fingers.
They better bring you back. Well, I appreciate you speaking with me today.
Of course, man.
I don't know if there's anything you could talk about in terms of what you're working on now. I know, like you said, NDAs or stuff. That's a thing. But if you're going to a Transformers event, that's really cool coming up.
Yeah, there's TF Nation in the UK in Birmingham is kind of fun, and the one in Sweden as well. I mean, we what is it? Digman is out there. I'm working on the Andy Samberg series, the comedy series, and it's on Comedy Central, and it's I play Howard Toe and a bunch of other characters, but that's other, and that's so much fun. It's very funny. And if you can stomach it, Farzar is also. But I loosely make sure you're an adult in the room, and because it goes there.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. No, there's others. I can't. Fright Crew is streaming, and that's a wonderful series about. Vampires and werewolves, and set in New Orleans, and Rob Paulson is also in that. And, I play the town mayor, who we all think he's one of the good guys. But there's other things. There's a bunch of games that are hovering, and another special coming out this summer again that. It's hard. You can't really, you can't say stuff.
This NDA, I mean, but you're still working, you're still continuing, and
yeah, man, thank goodness.
And that's the main thing. And I wish you, of course, great success. You've been doing it for quite a while, and hopefully you'll continue to keep going and going and going.
Yes, please.
Yes. Thank you so much again. I appreciate it. You have a good rest of your day. Okay.
You too, sir. Thanks. It was great.